Far from Europe, in Big Sky Country, these images capturing the often tragic plight of Syrians fleeing their war-torn country expose deep divisions.
I can't tell you that if I had seen that photo 2 years ago before my son was born that it would have done what it did.
Those pictures of 3-year-old Aylin Curdy gave Missoula, Montana resident Mary Poole a mission: form the group Soft Landing. Its goal: host 10 Syrian families, refugees.
What if we could bring refugees to Missoula? Came up really early on in the discussion.
Despite support from local officials, there was near instant pushback in surrounding communities.
I mean, they really don't know who they're bringing in. You know, it's unnecessary. We have enough problems in this country.
It wasn't even a grain of sand in my brain that people wouldn't want to help starving, drowning families.
Montana, its snow-capped peaks and small cities, is among the nation's least diverse states. Missoula has hosted refugees before: the Hmong in the late 1970s and 1980s, the Belarusians in the 1990s. But the possibility of Muslims here, it's led to protests, emails filled with anger and fear, and heated meetings.
Let me tell you, Allah and the God of the Bible is not one and the same.
In Hamilton, south of Missoula, county commissioners formally rejected Mary Poole's idea.
I think it's a concern about Islamic terrorists that sneak into the refugee camps so that they can perform their jihad in America. And to make a statement, you pick any of these rural communities and you can make a hell of a statement there.
If there's one thing people here say is driving this opposition, it's fear.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Rooted in part in political rhetoric. Since the 1930s, Americans have generally been reluctant to take in large numbers of refugees. This is no different. After the terrorist attacks in Paris, a majority of Americans oppose U.S. plans to take in Syrians.
If you look across Montana, Wyoming, and parts of Idaho, we are very much a white-only society here. I mean, there's pockets of, or just a handful of colored minorities. And so these are the last areas of white countryside, you know, and I think they want to keep it that way.
For all the opposition outside of Missoula, there is some support. Sean Wathan owns his bookstore in Hamilton's Main Street.
You put somebody out there is not you. That leads to the potential for what we're seeing. They are not us, and therefore they pose a threat.
In parts of Montana, it's led to anger against Muslims and calls for government to take care of the people here first, to create jobs, to help the homeless.
A lot of people do perceive this as the government shoving refugees into our community. The reality is members of our community have asked for that to happen. If people see the face of folks and come to know them as fellow human beings and figure out that we have things in common, that will do a lot to sort of get beyond that.
Despite the protests, Soft Landing recently scored a win. 25 years after it closed, the International Rescue Committee is reopening its office in Missoula. It plans to bring 100 refugees here its first year.
There's plenty of those folks that will never want resettlement here. It will never be their first choice. But it is happening.
Critics intend to fight on, if they have to, in the courts. Alex Sands, The Associated Press, Missoula, Montana.